Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new video. First off, I'd like to just say thank you for the insane response we've gotten on the Absolute Batman video. I thought it would get maybe 100 views at best if I was lucky, but we jumped to 3,000 within the week, and I'm shocked. That's probably one of my best view counted videos we've gotten. And I'd like to thank you all for, partaking in that. I'd like to thank the people that came in to answer the question that I proposed. Sure, we had a couple of people that were a little more negative on myself and whatnot, but that's the nature of the game. With YouTube, that's how it be. But for the most part, a lot of you guys were pretty chill and you gave out your thoughts and your feelings on Absolute Batman and why you like him, or a couple of people who had my more viewpoint on it were why you didn't like him. And so we're going to look at some of the comments here and we'll see what we can do, because I really do want to understand like the general feeling. I want to understand why people like Batman, this Absolute Batman. So we're going to go through some of these comments. Not every single one of them, but enough of them to, at least get an idea, right? So let's start with Infernal Heart. I think the core idea that Batman isn't rich is an admirable take, but some of those gadgets and vehicles seem way out of any normal person's pay grade. Did they even explain how Absolute Bruce can afford any of that stuff? Also, it's a separate Batman. We don't have to read it if it doesn't interest us. I personally want to see a more empathetic Batman, where he actually buckles down and rehabilitates his rogues gallery, with exceptions for the truly lost like Joker, and have them make actual progress in helping his villains attain a more harmonious life with Gotham and its citizens. Sure, it would probably end after a shortish run, depending on how fast they display the rehabilitation, but I personally am so utterly exhausted from the over-the-top aggressive action with very little inclusion of his detective training or empathetic mission to help the citizens of Gotham, which the villains are. Now, yeah, I would say, like, the Admiral, it's an idea, right? Him being not rich, like, okay, that's an interesting idea, I guess, but they don't really. It feels more window dressing, if anything, because especially when you bring in the gadgets and the cars, and it's like, okay, well, sure, he can build stuff, but he would still need money to make all the things and do all that, so it's like, it's not really explained how he can do that, because he's not rich, obviously, like in the main universe. His parents are not wealthy, and he's an engineer, which, because he builds all of his stuff, and it's like, okay, that's one thing, but it doesn't really help out of there, so they don't really explain it, I totally am up there with you for that. I would rather prefer to have like a Batman with empathy, with more a symbol of hope feeling, because this one's just more of the over-the-top action without anything to kind of like calm it down at this point, at least in the issues that have been revealed so far. That's what I'm feeling. Next up, we have Braden Walker. I mean, he's so violent it almost feels undeserved for the random thugs. Not to mention, it's the easy way out. It's always easier to lash out and brute force everything. That feels like the opposite of what Batman should be. I think it's well written and well drawn, but the themes feel very off, and it's hard to root for this version of Bruce. Alright, I mean, well written, I guess it's written enough for me drawn, it's alright. Mostly my issues on the visual style is just the designs of certain characters, like Black Mask, whatnot. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it just feel a little bit weird that he's going for this like easy route of the super aggressive violence, and going like excessive. It feels way too high in in it. It's one thing if it's an escalation, like it slowly builds up over time, but it feels like it's the first thing he does. It's the excessiveness, which doesn't really work for me personally, It's just one of those things. It feels too much like Punisher. Next up, we have Zack Scoggins. The same reason we like Shadow. It's over the top, edgy in the best ways possible. I mean, that's fair, Shadow is definitely very edgy, and he's edgy in that way that's just over the top, but you can't help but smile. So I can understand that for some people that kind of fits in that same vibe, because I could definitely say that Absolute Batman is very over the top and edgy in a lot of ways. Next up, we have Crying Psycho. I don't like him either, and I fully agree with you. Honestly, I thought I might never see another person who doesn't like that version. I really don't get the hype for it. Sometimes it's just how it is. Sometimes you don't think you're gonna see other people that have that similar take, but you just might. Even if I'm in the minority when it comes to Absolute Batman, that's just how it is. But hey, nice for you to, nice to see that other people kind of they see my point of view on it. Next, we have Pedro Elmos? I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering that. I can understand your point on it not feeling like Batman, but playing devil's advocate here, the writers might still get there. Think of it like Robert Pattinson's The Batman as an example. He starts the movie saying how he's supposed to strike fear, and there is no shortage of scenes where it doesn't feel like he cares for the hope part, and his sole focus is vengeance. Then it reaches the end of the movie where he starts realizing he can do more than just break every teeth on someone's mouth, because that is supposed to be a changing point for him. Granted, I feel like they could have already at least hinted at this being the case with Absolute Batman, but we still might see the moment Absolute Batman will just sit down with a crying child and comfort her instead of slicing someone's hand. Very true, and, bringing up Robert Pattinson's Batman is a good point, because, yes, for, 75% of that movie, he was more focused on the vengeance part, and it's at the end where he goes, okay, I can be more. I can be a symbol of hope for people. Criminals fear me, but I can be a symbol of hope for the people, and it was a really good part. And for me, I saw Robert Pattinson as a very good startup Batman. This is his early years where he's learning these things. Now, could they try this formula with Absolute Batman? Probably, maybe. I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibilities. However, we're kind of going in 10 issues, and I feel like it probably would have been nice if they kind of got to that point, a little earlier, because, because to me, this version of Batman doesn't quite feel like the core parts of Batman. Okay, sure, you have the symbol of fear, the scary motherfucker you don't want to walk into on a dark night, but I kind of need to see the guy that comforts, the children when they're crying or something like that. It would be nice. Now, could they do that? Give him all that and make him a little more hopeful, maybe make him a little bit more familiar to a Batman fan that wants to see that. Very possible, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Then we have Attack of the Copyright Bots, because he's buff. You know what? Alright, hey, you said your point. Beastie7284. It's a new take on Batman that's not him just being rich with thousands to back him up. If he needs to do upgrades or anything, it's unique and different, not the same thing that we keep coming back to. Minimum changes time and time again. Interesting. I mean, so this is kind of there might be a little bit of a common theme we might see with this, where it's not the same thing. But we'll talk more about it. It's a new take. Okay, sure. New take on Batman. Alright. People like to see new things every now and again, and I have no problems with that. But for me, I'm more of a, if it's gonna be new, it's gotta be entertaining, because I've seen new takes on stuff, and a lot of the times they're not always good. That's been my experience. Jonathan over here saying bat axe. That is all. Well, hey, people like bat axes. Bright guy, TY guy. Who knows? I like it purely because it's insane and fun. There's an animation someone made about Jonkler meeting Absolute Batman, and that alone makes me thankful we got this comic. There's a lot of interesting stuff they can do, as far as alternate universe Batman's trying to be different are concerned, and think this is one of the better ones. I like him more than the Batman Who Laughs, simply because it seems like more work was put into it. I suppose they were created by the same guy with Scott Snyder. I guess it's just, but that's more of a personal preference. I do like Batman Who Laughs for reasons. I think the concept that he had and the further implications were very interesting. I think they were probably one of the more better original takes that they did in recent years with DC Comics, but if I were to say my favorite alternate Batman, it'd probably have to be Owlman, because I'm just that much of a schlub. Next we have Baruch 32. I think the appeal come in at the what if versions of the founding members. What if Bruce didn't come from which upbringing? What if Clark knew his planet and parents and wasn't raised on Earth? What if Wonder Woman was raised by Amazons, but by something else entirely, and wasn't raised to be a warrior per se? I think it's the great what if factor. And that's sure, okay, the what if part. That's usually how it goes with these types of stories. It's alright, what's the difference thing? What's the hypothetical we're answering? That is definitely the appeal. Although I feel like the question they try to ponder of, okay, Batman isn't rich, it's not quite executed well enough in this, because you have a number of factors that sort of contrast and kind of conflict with that premise, that hook. Wonder Woman's story, I feel like, hits a little bit more better because they still stick to the premise of, okay, Wonder Woman raised by different parents, and we see that change. It's still consistent throughout every issue. With Superman, I'll be honest, I only read like 3 issues of it, and I kind of got bored. To be honest, I just didn't care enough to continue. It seemed like I was understanding the idea. It was just basically give Clark the Supergirl backstory, or make him old enough to have lived on Krypton and etc. And then they do a similar thing with like him and Batman, where his family are not like a part of the Science Guild. They're like, they're like low-level worker types people. That was all I kind of got out of that story. I just fell out of it. I just wasn't really feeling it. I didn't really care. Casual Fool 122. I saw Batman punch a child. I am intrigued. Well, yeah, I admit that is a funny image out of context. It's just there. Deadpool variant. It's exactly what you said. You don't understand the context. Batman is a split personality psychopath. I hate comic nerds that try to downplay the fact that Batman doesn't kill, yet will get obnoxiously close but won't, because he knows he is a psychopath that would become worse than the Joker if he did. Absolute Batman brings a new image to Batman, adding more trauma to his narrative. Poor upbringing, single parent, his best friends will eventually try to kill him, etc. If your hate for a certain artist's image of Batman gets in the way of exploring the true nature of Batman, then go back to watching your Looney Tunes Batman. It's all but just an Elseworlds project after all, not the definitive Batman after all. Sure, it's an Elseworlds pretty much, but I feel like the split personality psychopath thing, not quite there. I mean, downplaying the fact that Batman doesn't kill, I feel like that's sort of one of the best aspects of Batman. It's like he could do it. He could kill people. Like, sure, he could do that. He could remove all the threats in Gotham immediately, but that's sort of the point. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to become worse. Like, sure, he might get close if he's pushed to the point, but him getting pushed to that point, having that temptation, and saying, no, I'm not going to do it, that showcases strength. That showcases his character. You know, and Looney Tunes Batman. I mean, that's a interesting description, since I believe one of the most popular versions of that Batman was the Kevin Conroy one in the animated series, where there is a number of times where he was close to killing a guy, like Joker, and even then he wouldn't do it. I mean, just saying. Just a guy who watches for fun. I like him because he's the Batman I want. Buff, dark, brutal, and his enemies even more so. Interesting. Well, I mean, simple taste. Nothing wrong with that, and, you know. Rob Money 1350. Nice video, thank you. I like the comic so far, but mainly because it's over the top for the fun of it. It feels very pulpy, heavy metal, and the vibe is a dystopian and weird. Scott Snyder has become very abstract lately, though, and this is a far cry from his earlier, more grounded stuff like Court of Owls, Black Mirror, etc., which was much more iconic Batman. True, his Court of Owls run was pretty good, and it was fun, and I can understand, I guess, it does have the over-the-top vibe to it. Pulpy heavy metal? Yeah, I could definitely see the heavy metal. The pulp part, maybe not. Maybe I can't see it, but sure. The BTK Solid. The question you should be asking is, what does Batman mean to each person? I mean, that's true. I should be asking that kind of question. Although, I think I'm still sort of kind of getting it in a way, but, you know, it's a question I could have asked. Aspector 374. Fresh take on Batman, who's arguably even more of a badass because he doesn't have wealth. Rides a Batmobile the size of a building, horns flip down for headbutts, he wields a freaking axe, whose head is his bat symbol, etc., etc. May not be everyone's cup of tea, but it sure as hell is mine. Okay. Fresh take, you know, that's sort of a general vibe we seem to be getting, you know, out of it. Fresh take. I'm not even gonna pronounce that. I've only seen a little of Absolute Batman, Superman, and Flash, to be honest, but the way I see it is that their stories will end with them being, at least in mind, maybe a little darker, the iconic heroes we know and love. All three of them start as shell of themselves, and find it interesting in that way. I guess I also really hope they do Absolute series for the original lineup of Justice League animated series that include Jon Stewart's Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, of course Martian Manhunter, all because Wally West is a Flash here, just a thought. Maybe you can get an Absolute Justice League series as a finale, but that's just me hoping. Either way, I find Absolute Batman a really fun version, as long as he's just the exception to the rule and not an archetype role of future Batmans. That is sort of a similar view I'm hoping, is just that he doesn't become the baseline. I don't want him to be the baseline for all Batmans going forward. It's one thing if he's just in his own little corner and just kind of staying there, and that's all he does. I don't want people to try to base the mainline Batman off of him and try to make it more like that. And sure, they're most likely going to set up a Absolute Justice League once they've gotten far down the line with some of the characters, because I know they already got the Trinity, they've got Flash. At the time of this recording, the Absolute Green Lantern book came out, the first issue, and I believe Martian Manhunter's book is going to come out in the next couple weeks at the time of this recording. So I feel like they're already prepping that up. I feel like that's going to be your roster for your Justice League. But yeah, Man at the Maniac. If you watch Comic Explains video on the Absolute Universe, you understand that Bruce Wayne is very untrained, so his fighting style becomes very brutal, and the more danger he gets and the more violent he gets. So instead of being a controlled fighter like the mainline Batman, because of his copious amount of training, we have an underbelt Batman. I do agree, a lot of the violence is obsessive and makes you think that would have killed the guy, but I don't think it's supposed to be taken so serious, other than that the story and some of its scenes can be really cool. Well, I haven't really watched any comics explained videos per se on that, so I can't really state anything on that. The idea of him being an underdeveloped fighter, I don't know. That's one way to look at it. I don't know if taking it so serious. It's just a tick I have with that kind of thing. You know, it's sort of the same thing I've had with a lot of the various movie Batmans. Like, even the good stuff. Like, Keaton Batman killed people. Bale killed people. I mean, Val Kilmer's Batman killed people. You know, I think the only one that didn't really kill anyone was maybe Clooney and Pattinson himself. You know, it's just one of those things. Billy the Goat. I'll give you a short and simple answer. Many people and myself like the idea and concept of Absolute Batman because it's different. Because it's not the same story done over and over and over again. It's how I feel about Batman always facing the Joker, like we've seen it done thousands of times, and yet I wonder how people are still entertained seeing Batman fight Joker all the damn time. Yet I'd like to see Batman's other rogues, and in my opinion, more interesting villains aside from the Clown. Alright, okay, so this is another bit of it's new. It's not the same thing, right? And I totally get the idea with, you know, it's annoying that he's always fighting the Joker. That's always what they default to, you know. And I totally get that. I kind of prefer some other villains get the spotlight too, right? That's fine, you know. I totally get that. I think my issue with the it's just different. I feel like that's not good enough for me. Like, it can be different, but I need it to be good. And for me, personally, I don't view it that. A lot of people see it as such. Me, not so much. Bebop Obama. I like it because it's a fresh take on Batman that has some interesting twists on the character. It's similar to how you have Transformers G1, Beast Wars, Armada, etc., or Gundam Seed, G Gundam, Build Fighters, etc. I've realized comic fans aren't used to experience alternate universe stories that deviate heavily. Growing up on anime and manga, this kind of storytelling is familiar to me. Well, I feel like comic book fans can handle stuff that deviate, like, heavily to a degree, but usually those stories tend to be either there's a specific reason why they're different, like, say, the noir universe, you know, like, it's set in, like, the 1920s era, you know, where the rise of, like, World War II is getting close on that front. It's all, like, old school mafia gangsters, like, noir detective stuff. Like, alright, you got that kind of thing. Or you have the zombie universe, you know, whenever they want to do that story. You know, there's a number of things that they do that, like, change it up, and they deviate pretty heavy from, you know, the normal stuff. I think that this one doesn't quite hit the mark for me. Combo smooth. My Batman is a paragon of justice. He's not an anti-hero, he's just a hero. He's always in the moral right, despite being a bit grim dark, and he's not meant to be judge, jury, and executioner. So I doubt I'd like this Batman either. But a lot of people do want Batman to be an anti-hero in the style of Punisher. A number of people do. I personally don't. I think you need to have that hard limit with stuff. Like, that's why you get Jason, where he fits that bill perfectly in the role of anti-hero. And a good contrast. Chicken Films 10. Real. It's so corny. They're trying way too hard to make him badass, and then marketing the book to be Batman, but not rich, felt kind of sleazy. It's clear they're trying to appeal to a younger audience, but that just doesn't understand Batman. Possibly, I think I do feel like the not rich part is just a very odd marketing like hook thing they're trying to pull, and it doesn't really. They don't execute that. They don't really work on that. It's like, okay, he's not rich, but yet he still has access to all these crazy gadgets and vehicles, and sure, he needs support from the number of people in his like circle of friends. Like, he's training at Killer Croc's gym. He needs Penguin's help to get him on the plane to fly to Black Mass like yacht. He's getting Riddler's help to do certain things here and there, getting information from Harvey. Sure, but that's still. But honestly, if you took that in a mainline Batman, that's not really that much different. You know, not really. That guy named Sky. The reason why I like it, I found to be kind of spelled out to me in a live stream Snyder did, where he explains a lot of his choices in reinventing Batman. He said Batman to him is a means to face fear, to have someone rise above your own fears. Having Batman be Gen Z and working class, we see that idea everywhere. His father being killed in a mass shooting represents a fear many today have. Young people also tend to not like capitalism very much. Batman in the first arc faces off against Black Mask, who, not gonna lie, is the kind of person I think about sometimes in my own political endeavors and pray I never become important enough to meet. He's that US-based guerrilla that overthrown God knows how many South American leaders. He's the CIA. He's government power at its most global. He represents the height of monopoly on violence the state holds. And this is the kind of thing that terrifies me. In order for Batman to reasonably outmatch them, he has got to be absolutely brutal. He's grappling with the enforcers of power. He's tackling a very real fear that I, as a Gen Z politically active person, have. I do agree that him having access to so much stuff does sour the point of making him so systematically powerless, though. My hope is he's been saving all that stuff for something real big, and now that he's fought it, he's more grounded. We'll see. Okay, that's a lot to unpack. Young people tend not to like capitalism much. Okay. That's certainly a viewpoint there. And Black Mask is the CIA. I mean, okay. That's a lot to unpack. Jean-Paul Lane Valley. You figure DC's modus operandi. Bait out-of-context panels with the social media crowd, either through cynical, wholesome crap or 90s tears shock. This is just your typical Scott Snyder Batman stuff. Overpowered, always has a plan, violent, borderline psychopathic, but sold under the excuse of a brand new DC rush to get Marvel's new Ultimate. That Darkseid backstory thing is just a blatant, messy attempt at tying these series to do that. Why would people be so invested in a vanilla version of Punisher that ultimately says nothing? I also don't know, but everything is secondary to Batman performing violence, apparently. Yeah, that's essentially what DC's doing with this stuff. They're making their own Ultimate Universe because Marvel's doing it, after they just rebooted it, and Spider-Man's doing pretty well with all that. So DC's like, okay, let's try that and see what we get. And they'll just let the writers and creators do whatever the fuck they want, And some of the results are okay. I liked Absolute Wonder Woman. I think that's the best one out of the bunch. Batman, obviously, I don't like for my own reasons. Superman, I just kind of stopped reading that, and I only read the first issues of Flash and Green Lanterns, and I didn't really get much out of that. Personally, I sort of need a little bit more to work with those characters, but you know how it is. You know how it be. But yeah, that's all we're gonna go for. So, the general vibe that we've been getting is that a lot of people go for that it's new, it's different, it's not the same old stuff, and I can understand that. I can get it, right? for me personally, I need more than just, oh, it's new. It's not the same old, you know, because an example of it's not the same old story over and over and over again. Mr. Freeze. Before they retconned his story with him having Nora and the sympathetic angle that they give him, you know, the tragic backstory, he was just a common thief, you know, in the, like, that was just his thing. He just used ice rays to steal stuff. That's all he did. And that was a popular thing at the time, even got all the way up to the Adam West Batman show. It was only when they got to the animated series that they changed his backstory. They changed him from just a simple thief into a scientist that was trying to save his dying wife. You know, and that change was pretty good. So much so that it became the default for his character. So you can't exactly say that that's, you know, oh, new and different, you know, you don't like new and different. That was new and different, and that worked out pretty well. Hell, even a lot of the various Batman shows, you know, like the 2004 The Batman, they did a number of different changes to characters. Be it some designs or elements of a story that still kept the same aspects of the core bits of characters while being different. Granted, Mr. Freeze in that show, they brought him back to the more... They brought him back to that thief angle, but his design and, you know, modus operandi was pretty good still. Even if, you know, personally I would have liked to kept the Nora angle. But it was still a good Mr. Freeze. You know, they had even Bennett as a version of Clayface. He was the first Clayface. But even then, we still got a traditional Clayface when they brought in Basil Carlo to play, you know, the bad guy Clayface later down the line. You know, they did a number of things. So, for me, I need more than just, oh, it's new and different. New and different does not automatically mean good to me. It has to, you know, I could, you know, like, you could go to a restaurant and we can say, oh, there's this new and different menu option, right? And, I don't know, say it's a particular sandwich, right? And we give it to you. And you eat it, and you go, dude, this sandwich is, like, raw. I can, like, see it still breathing. And they go, well, it's new and different. You can't say you don't like it. That's how I feel. I need it to be good and new and different. I can't... New and different, it does not sell me enough on it. But that's just me. You know, that's just me personally. That's all I have to say on that part. But this has been very enlightening, you know, to see what people like about this. So far, it's pretty much like, it's the action, it's the over-the-topness, the edginess, you know, akin to Shadow, you know, people just like that kind of aspect, which I totally get. I do like my over-the-top shit, too, like Doom and whatnot, when they just go batshit nuts, and it clicks that part of your brain, and that seems to be what it's doing there. Otherwise, it's mostly people just like it because it's new and different, you know, different flavor to Batman, which is like, alright, you know, but that's what it is there. So, that's sort of what we've got. I mean, I don't know how this is gonna go, but I'd like to thank you all for coming along and listening to me babble on about Absolute Batman yet again. I don't know, maybe I'll do a video on Absolute Wonder Woman and just gush about how I like that one, maybe. You know, to offer a counterbalance, you know, to not always be a negative Nancy. But, with that said, I'm gonna call it a day on that. Please leave your thoughts on Absolute Batman and I guess the other Absolute DC Universe stuff in the comment section below. Leave your recommendations for other things in the superhero community you want me to talk about. I like to read the comments as we just started this. But with that all being said, thank you all for coming along. See you on the next video. Goodbye.